And we're live. Welcome back. It's Tom and Mike, or Mike and Tom show. Still don't have a name. And today we have a rose between two thorns, at least on my screen. So, Tom, how you doing?
Very, very good. It's good to see you, Mike. Hope everything is well up in Michigan. Everything is hot as hell down here in the great state of Arkansas. But enough of that. We're here to chat with Donna Black, who is going to be our association's president here in just another few weeks. Where we got to, what are we? This 30, almost exactly 30 days away from being sworn in. Donna, of course, served for a number of years in our association on the Volunteer and Combination Officers Section Board. She was the international director, joining the board of directors for the IAFC, the big board as we call it, for the mothership, I think in 2017, and then has been elected to the second vice president role in 2020. As Mike calls her, she's our COVID president. But no fake election here, that's for sure. But most importantly, she's going to be our president. Her full-time job, when she's not managing all the chaos at the IAFC, is that she's the fire chief, of course, for the viewers that may not know her background. She's fire chief in Duck, North Carolina, which is in the Outer Banks, a beautiful area, fast-growing community. I noticed, Donna, when I get these emails about best vacation places, I see Duck all the time now. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's just because I know you, I remember it or what, but she's been on the job for 26 years in various capacities, has been a volunteer firefighter, been a career firefighter for the vast majority of those years. And of course, is an EFO grad, comes with a wonderful resume, most importantly, a kick-ass friend. So Donna, good to have you with
us. Thank you for having me, guys. We have to come up with your name today. That's our goal by the end, is you need a show name.
We agree. We agree. We're not marketing people, though. We suck.
That's right.
We just like to talk. We just like to talk with people that are cooler than us.
That's awesome. Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
So what's going on in Duck? Tell us about the fire department down there.
So we are in peak season right now. We are 2.32 square miles. So for those that don't know much about me, 2.32 square miles isn't a lot, but I can tell you right now, there's about 25,000 people plus in that 2.32 square miles. In the winter, we're less than 1,000 on census wise. So there's a lot going on. Our call volume is definitely related to our population. Of course, our worst call can be off season and not in season, but right now our volume's up. We were all volunteer. We're in our 40th year. Our birthday was last week, actually. So we're 40 years old as a fire department. And the town of Duck has only been incorporated for 20 years. So fast growing community, used to be just, a little beach town. And now, we're a town and we have 25,000 people here. We've had to see, the fire department evolve, especially over my time here. Yeah, I've been here. I started as a volunteer here. And so you fast forward 27 years. One, I've seen it all. And two, we've had to stay ahead of what's happening in town, especially when it comes to service delivery. So challenging. We're a combination, but I do have a engine crew, minimum staffing 3, 4 assigned, and then volunteers on top of that to run calls.
So you've been the chief for how long, Donna?
Since 2006, I was the only paid employee at the time. I was the only career position. And the day I was hired.
Sure, right?
Say again?
No pressure there, I'm sure.
Yeah, right. And, of course, there was a big push to keep it volunteer. And first day on the job, I said, I'll keep it volunteer as long as I can. You mentioned I'm an EFO grad and I have drank that Kool-Aid. My first project, because it was shortly after becoming chief, I went to EFO. No one had ever looked at the data of the fire department. No one had, compared call volume, trends, anything. I had a 100-page first paper with EFO just because I needed the data to know where I was. And I use that data every year. I just keep building my data set. And we are now staffed based on that data. I just put up graphs that show our call volume and loss of volunteers, and they make pretty little pictures when you do a line graph. And it's like, I've tried to stay ahead of that. So we are where we are now very quickly.
So I'm a little curious about, I'm fascinated by the fire department's different deployment models and how different places do things subtly different. And being an aviation buff, I know, you're by Kitty Hawk and,
right.
And so you have a lot of these, I think kind of similar size, similar operating communities. How well do you all work together and cooperate? And I'm curious how that plays into just getting the job done out there.
So it's challenging. A matter of fact, a young guy that left here 17, 18 years ago came back in. He's with a larger department in Virginia, and he came and sat yesterday, and we talked. And he forgets what it's like down here. We have 15 different departments in our county, and we're stretched over about 120 miles linearly. So if you look at a map of the Outer Banks, it's very skinny. So there's several deployment challenges. One is time, right? I can get all the help in the world if you give me an hour, but we don't have an hour, especially in a structure fire. We work well together. They're all independent. They all have, independent chiefs. We meet regularly. We have an officers association, but you don't know what you're getting. We're all combination. So sometimes you don't know that first in engine may be to my north, or it could be from my south. And what's on that? Is it career? Is it volunteer? So we do a great job down here to get a lot done with very few people. Um, but I know traditionally, especially in larger departments, you probably have protocols. First in engine's doing this, second in engine's doing this, truck's doing this. We don't know the order of things. So the playbook is on the fly sometimes. We generally know, but we have to go with time, distance, staffing. So we figure it out, but it's definitely different down here.
Tom, I visited Donna with my kids, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, come on. She's like 4 miles away. She's like, yeah, I'll see you in an hour. I'm like, you're 4 miles away. There's like one road. And so you think of all the goofy stuff like we do, non-emergency response to a low priority, low acuity medical, non-emergency response to maybe a fire alarm.
Mhm.
You almost have to take some of that discussion off the table.
Yeah.
Because you're never going to get there. Because the main
Say again, Tom?
Is that congested?
Yeah, so the day Mike came in, it was a rainy day. We have one road in and out. We've been trying to get a bridge for like 30 years probably, to create another way. But yeah, rainy days, there's just Corolla's to the north of us. They probably have 50,000 plus people that have to go through duct to get to them. On any given week. So it's a challenging area. It's a beach community. If you go up to Cape Cod, same thing. There's just congestion. So when you look at deployment, we pretty much go lights and siren on those days to anything, not with speed, obviously, just to gain access. EMS will still respond because we do first response. They do transport. They'll respond. If it's an alpha call, they're going to come alpha. We'll get there. If we need to upgrade them, we'll upgrade them if it's worse than an alpha call. So we figured it out, but absolutely some challenges. We also know the time of day that, those things tend to happen. Mike happened to come in during one of those periods of time. I warned him.
I knew I was coming.
And I'd like to go on record that Mike came to visit Tom, just saying.
That's a good point.
All right. So Donna, you did not start as a firefighter in your life. So you grew up upstate New York, right?
Yeah. So it's funny, when I decided to run, when I thought I wanted to run for second VP, I got a couple of colleagues in the room, not in fire, not directly in fire. And I said, hey, I really want to do this. And someone I've been working with started with, tell us the first time. And I challenge anyone listening. When was the first time you thought you rescued someone? And it turned into like a 30-minute therapy session. That was 10 years old. I can tell you what it was, right? And that's for another time. But I realized I probably always had the bug. I'm of the generation where I watched Emergency. I had the big old doll with a lunchbox playing paramedic when I was little. And, I have a background in exercise physiology and I worked in a hospital. So it was always in the back of my mind. I just never thought I could do it. Right. EMT always intrigued me. And then I moved down to Duck because I came on vacation and it was a cool little town. And I opened a business with a friend of mine and I was running one day and it was a personal ask, like a lot of people, especially in the volunteer world, right? One of the captains like, hey, you're fit. We need volunteers. You want to be a firefighter? Within a month, they put me in a little training burn, right? Good or bad, it was a long time ago, right? And it was the coolest thing ever. And I never looked back. So I had a business and just got all my certs as a volunteer, worked up to volunteer deputy chief. Then I decided to make the switch to career. And shortly after, ended up coming back here to to be the chief. So I found the passion, but it took me a little while. I was a late bloomer, but now I'm all in, obviously. So.
Well, so you touched on something I'd like. You have some challenges that sound very unique, and of course, we've been friends for a long time, so I'm kind of keenly aware of some of them. But you deal with a seasonal population increase
Sure.
that is exponentially challenging.
Yes.
I think you said 1,000 residential, in the off peak to 25,000. That's tough for anybody to manage.
Yes.
So I can only imagine the impact on your volunteers is tough. Being a volunteer firefighter is ridiculously challenging today. A career firefighter and volunteers alike struggle in the recruitment and retention world. How are you handling it? You got any secrets you might share?
Sure. So years ago, it was cheaper to live here because now it's a destination area. So it's pricey to live in Duck. I live in Duck. I'm fortunate that I can do that because I got in way before, and I've now switched the type of housing I'm in. But it when I first started here, if we'd get a fire call, all three apparatus were full of what we call red tag suppression firefighter, all young. They all had you know, working at the sailing center, had worked at the toy shop, and then everyone could leave and they could come to the calls. The calls were like a couple hundred a year, right? So no big deal. You fast forward, you start the boom of like 2000, 2001, and then again probably after that crash in 2000, 2008. You could see our numbers go down. No one could afford to live here anymore. So the young firefighters were leaving. And then who was moving in? People that were retired. So we've held on. There's been enough that have been around that could go running in the burning building. But what we've really done, and I've talked about this, I've done presentations on this. We embraced, if you live here, we need you, and we'll use you in a support role. So I've got literally 70-year-olds that can pull a blitz line and hold an exposure while I have other people doing what they need to do. So we've really embraced, there's a job for you here. It may not be doing the heavy lift of going in and putting out the fire, but what support tasks can you do outside? I can't meet the standard of what you need on a 2,500 square foot burning home by any standard. We can't meet that in a time frame that would probably make most of the people watching crazy, right? But we've learned to use our other resources to try to counteract that. But the reality is, and but we'll talk about this when we get to talking about IFC a little bit. The reality is we've had a shift in our demographics, and we had to pay people. I can't. One, the traffic, even if someone 5 miles away wants to volunteer, unless they're sitting here on a Saturday morning, they're not helpful. Our truck checks are Saturday mornings. We do lunch for the volunteers. We do training on Saturdays, so they're here, so we can deploy immediately to overcome the traffic. But from a recruitment retention, it's getting blood out of a turnip, really, right? Squeezing something out of a turnip because we just don't have the population to draw from. So we've had to adapt, but we're a combination still, and I will keep a combination as long as possible. I think it's a healthy model.
Isn't it funny? It's that personal contact, right? That's what started for you, for me. I have to remind my staff all the time, and right, some of our best recruitment, we give a bonus. If you refer somebody to us and we hire them, they get like $1,000 because typically they can explain it. They can help. The longevity of the incoming person usually helps. And I'll tell you, that's it's funny that even for you, right, it was a personal reach out. Somebody, hey, you look fit.
Yeah.
So Tom, did you know this about Donna? What physical activity was she heavily involved in for sports?
Gymnastics.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too.
I feel like that's an educated guess. What was the correct answer, Donna?
What are you thinking? Golf?
Iron Woman stuff, running.
Oh,
biking.
yeah. Oh, that was, yeah. Oh, see, now you see how far I've come. I'm like, golf. Yeah, I've attempted a couple full Ironmans. I've done halves, and I used to do triathlons and run a lot. And then I became a fire chief. Bad combination. So yeah, I'll still run some, I'll bike some, but yeah, I have absolutely had this whole racing piece. But just to finish, you're not going to see me in a record book anywhere, but now I've discovered golf through COVID, and it's a nice that's been a nice mental break for sure. Yeah, I forgot I told you about that, Mike.
See, hidden gems if you made it this far.
Yes.
14 minutes in. All right, so Donna, let's talk IFC. Big move for you to be sworn in here at Fire Rescue International coming up in San Antonio. Talk to us about, I mean, this is a big commitment for you. So what are you most excited about in becoming president?
So, and Tom, you chose to run, and, you have your reasons for running, and please share with everyone. I just I want to make a difference, and I want us to be heard. And so when I decided to run for the second VP, you have a vision of what you think that is, and then reality hits, right? And I think this is important for anyone listening that's a member of the IFC. It's on the outside looking up, right? I was like, oh, we can do this, and we can do this, and we can do this. But the reality, once you get up there, one is an association. You have to kind of go with what is presented to us as an association. And obviously, we had some financial challenges, and then you throw in a pandemic that no one's had to deal with before, and it can change your focus, your attention, and the rainbows and bunnies of what I thought I wanted to do definitely shifted in as second VP and first VP. I'm really excited going into this year because I think we've turned the corner. And you're going to hear a lot from me, and even in my speech, what's next, right? And I'm calling it IFC Next because I think we really need to be looking to, we're coming into our 150th year as an association. What's the next 150? Chief Steubing did a great job to push that we get some strategic planning done. And I think if we can follow that, because we're in for a year, Tom knows you're in for a year. You do what you can in that year, but how can we be more sustainable over time? How can we be the support system we're hearing from our members that we need to be? And I hope we can start looking at what that means. When you look at recruitment, I think we need to get out there. I'm working with some folks. I'm going to bring it to the board in San Antonio. We need to be out there because we're not good recruiters. We're not good sellers of what we do, right? We are when we go to a fire and put it out or we save someone, but we really need someone else to tell our story. So the community understands what they're getting. Our leaders in the community understand what we're giving them for the money they're putting into us, and also so they know that it's possible to do this. Community members don't know unless they need you, right? They know you're sitting down there, but they don't necessarily know what you have until they have to make that call. I want to change that. I want us to get out front. And I think we're at a point now with IFC that we can start looking towards that. So that's what I'm going to work with our strategic plan. What we're hearing through the focus groups is we need to help our association and our members, right? They want resources, they want toolkits, how to help them better do their jobs because it's not the same as it was, quite frankly, pre-COVID or 10 years ago. So I hope we can start doing some stuff now that we're out of all the stuff that's happened. And I'll be the first one, and then those after me hopefully can carry that on. But that's what I'm looking to try to make sure we're looking forward now that we're a little more settled with everything that's happened.
Mike, how does that make you feel? What do you think about Donna's vision for where she wants to take our association?
I always hear when you talk to fire chiefs that are not members, and they will always come back and say, "Hey, what does the IFC do for me?" Right? They feel local stuff. They feel their county chiefs, their state chiefs, and so many of them don't see that value. And I think it's how do you keep pushing back, because fire chiefs, it can be lonely, right? As a fire chief, and that's where our associations can build those connections. And I think Donna's gonna kill it with some of this. I do want to say, Tom, we should probably take a before picture. and we can do a meme on this.
She hasn't been sworn in yet, so not
when it started, when it ended.
Donna, it's a wonderful experience, right? It'll age you well.
But I just get to represent. I have the honor to represent our association, but it's the work of the members, right? And Mike, you hit on something. I know from my region, right? There's chiefs just some are volunteer chiefs trying to do their day job, and then their call volume's going up, and they're worried about recruiting and money and everything else. We've got to use the structure of our membership. I had the chance to go to a few division conferences now in the last several months, now that we're all traveling again. And there's strength at the division level because, when you look at IFC as a whole, if you're sitting in somewhere USA or somewhere North America, that looks very daunting up there, right? The association, how can it help me there? We need to bring it down, work with our counties, work with our states, work with our divisions to grab people and then let them learn, at even higher level what IFC can do for them. I think we've got to break that out and not try to take a big bite out of the elephant at the top. I think we need to push down and use our membership to help grab others that could benefit from our association.
Donna, I want to compliment you for running. I started getting involved with the IAFC. They asked me to be on. I was on that F-Star early on and did a few things back and forth. And I remember talking to Mark Light, and I said, "Hey, Mark, I'd like to continue to be involved in the association. I've enjoyed this kind of work and some of these working groups." And he goes, "You just need to run." And it was scary, scary to run against Niles Ford, who's got a great reputation over there in Baltimore City and has done a lot of good stuff. But it was a great experience. I'm glad I did it. I know you'll do good. But I am curious. You shared your vision. I have no doubt that if there's anybody that will get in there and get some work done and show up and get their hands dirty, it's you. What caused you to run? It would have been a lot easier in your life to stay chiefing and duck, which obviously you'll continue to do, but just to do that and be on the board, you have a lot of influence on the board. Like, what was that moment where you thought, this is a crazy idea, I'll step out there?
I'll back it up to VCOS. So when I became a chief, and I would call it baby chief, like my first year, I knew duck well. I knew what I was getting into here, but like when you put it out in the real world, what the heck was I doing, kind of thing. So I looked at two things. I looked to VCOS and I looked to EFO, because I'm like, all right, I need some resources. I need some networking to make sure I'm very sensitive to trying to be relevant and stay abreast of what's going on, not just tunnel into our small little community. It's easy to do. And so those became my touch points to try to help me move along in my career. So I got involved with VCOS, and how I got involved with VCOS was a personal ask from someone said, you should put in for the scholarship, because I did a presentation at the state level, and someone came out and said, you should put in the scholarship to go to Symposium in the Sun. And I'm like, okay, I'll put it in. And I got the scholarship. So then I got there and it was exactly what I needed. So I remember going to Tim Wall, because I'll blame Tim Wall all day long. He was the chair of VCOS forever, very motivated. And at that Symposium in the Sun, I said, I want to get more involved. And so I just started, they had me do something little. And then I'm like, well, maybe I'll run. So the year I ran, 14 people ran for 3 spots. So I looked at my deputy chief. I'm like, well, that was a dumb idea, right? Because there's no way. And I don't know if Donna Black helped at the top of the list, but I ended up getting elected that year. And that kind of put me on the journey of getting more involved and wanting to make a difference. The second VP, other people were saying, oh, you should run. And I'll be honest with you, I'm from a small little department. I'm not a metro department. I'm not the sizes of, quite frankly, either of you two. And I'm like, do I have everything? Do I know everything to offer to serve at that level? Right. Because I'm sure that's a question, a small little department. But Chief Sinclair had Kara Kelkrenner and I do the Women's Chiefs Council. And you couldn't ask for 2 different departments if you tried. And I had never met Kara. And Tom, you were there because you asked the question. You said, so what are the challenges of, being female fire chiefs and, small department, big department? I don't know if you remember this. Never met Kara. And we're like, fleet maintenance, staffing, personnel issues. Like, we said the exact same things. And I remember you going, well, that's interesting, because I don't know what you were looking for in our answers, but we were exactly the same. And that kind of sealed it for me then, that it is no different. It's just scope. And also I feel I represent a large part of our fire service in that perspective. And so I'm like, so then it wasn't so scary to be like, maybe I'll try. But again, it was other people saying, maybe you should run, that put it in my head. And then I I did, and here we are.
1.2 million firefighters, and 65% of them are volunteer in the
Yeah.
country. So
Yeah.
I'm so glad you did run. I think that's amazing.
But I'm excited.
I think, there's a common thread that I don't think we underestimate it, right? My involvement was a fire chief saying, hey, you should go teach at FRI, put in a program, and it got accepted. We just finished up community risk reduction conference. I've been to a bunch of division conferences lately. And right, that's the number one thing is how do you break these barriers down to get people engaged and look at what happens when for as much we're all trying to get our organization staffed with the right people on the bus, like a lot of us as leaders in the fire service got to keep finding the future talent and get them plugged in. And what I'm noticing is it's a human ask. It's not just an email like, hey, I could use your help. You're talented. Go do this and go tell your story. Because, right, look at all of us have something where somebody asked us or got us in. And I think we have to remember that, right?
Yeah. I think you nailed it. I think it's possible. It's possible. Look at the three of us, very different ways of getting in, right? And I think we need to make sure our membership knows our association members have the opportunity to serve at different levels. There's a lot of talent out there, way more talent than me sitting here. And we just got to figure out how to engage them and how to let them know it's possible. And I think that's, definitely something on the to-do list for the board as a whole to look at. But
Chief Sinclair used to always say, and he stole it from, I think, James Page, that decisions are made by those that show up. That's half the battle is just you want to be involved and, make it a verb, be involved.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. So Donna, then, right, you've got this phrase, what's next? So what would be, so we should probably back up a second. Maybe Tom helps interject or you interject. For those who have no clue what we're talking about, the IAFC president, Steve Kerber, once told me, you become the nation's president, right? So you could get a phone call and say, hey, we need you over in Congress to go speak tomorrow, some committee, right? You could go represent the IFC at divisions, state meetings. But there's a lot to this. It's a lot of travel. It's meeting. It's working with federal agencies, other countries. And it's really painting this vision and helping not only our members, but we've got staff support. What am I missing? Like, if you were to describe what the IFC president is, either of you, how would you guys describe it?
Let's start with Tom, since he has the inside knowledge.
I was intoxicated for a fair amount of it. No, I think you hit the nail on the head, Mike. I mean, what was bewildering about the experience, and I compare a lot of things to fatherhood these days, is because you think you know what being a parent's going to be about until you're a parent, and then you realize there's a whole nother rule book.
Yeah.
Being a fire chief, similar, right? You think you have some idea of what chiefing's like, then you're the chief, and you're accountable for everybody. And it's a little different game than the perspective you have when you just desire the job. And I think being the IAFC president, I mean, first of all, it's a great honor. It's the connections and friendships you collect, along the way. Those are priceless. You hit all the gritty parts, right, Mike? You're traveling. You have to be one part kind of politician. You have to be a spokesperson for the whole industry, whether you're not just the 13,000 members. You're talking for the 1.2 million, and that's just U.S. alone. Firefighters. You have to represent volunteers and careers and metros and everybody in between, because that's what you're supposed to do. But it's a marathon. So I'm glad you've done some Ironman stuff, Donna, because it's what it feels like. I think by the time you're done, you're also managing a job. The IAFC is a big organization. I don't know if it was a lie I was told, but I'll perpetuate it regardless, that it was the oldest, like one of the oldest or the oldest nonprofit in the country. So 1873 that it was founded, and you've got full-time staff. So you have a lot of responsibilities there. You've got to connect with that executive director, and you're doing all these things that are wonderful. They're awesome, rare opportunities to do it. And you have a full-time job, right? You have somebody that is trying to give you money so you can pay your mortgage, and you've got to do that too, because none of this stuff pays. So it's a good experience, and but that's how I would characterize it. I was just glad that I was still employed at the end of it. I didn't get sick, and that I didn't get divorced, and probably by the hair of my chinny chin on all of them. But I wish you luck, Donna.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a little daunting as it as that window approaches very quickly here. To do all that, I have great support locally, right? My town manager, my deputy chief, and my fire department, obviously, because they know, this year's going to be uh, a challenge. My deputy chief is new; he's a couple years in, but that was an interview question for everyone, right? Because I knew at that point that this was happening, and that it'll be a little more on him for that period of time. But he's ready; he knows it's coming. Um, yeah, I feel the responsibility and carry the weight of representing everyone to the best of my ability. But we have a board, right? We have a board, and it's not one serving. It's a team. It's a team sport. Yes, we're the figurehead, but there's some parts of it that are a team sport, and I'm going to depend on the board. That's what they're sitting there for. We're all representing pieces of it, and then working with staff. Rob and I are already meeting weekly. We already have weekly meetings so that we're getting ready for all of that, and some things I want to see us try to do. And anything I'm thinking about doing or would like to see us do is based on what I hear. I do a lot of listening and a lot of taking notes, right? And I've been listening the last couple of years, and I think we're ready. I think everyone's ready to see what's next, right? I think everyone wants to be excited and be really um I want to see people energized again, right? We've come out of a lot of stuff, and be excited about what we do as a whether it's career or volunteer, and also entice the next generation, because there's a whole group of people out there we haven't even grabbed yet, right? That we need them to be firefighters and want to be fire chiefs someday. And then really finding the next generation of our leaders, right? They're out there, and I think it's our responsibility to identify them, nurture them, and get them to the positions we're all in. And that's a team effort, definitely.
Nobody has said it better. I think that I think you're 100% right, and as every past president would tell you, for as much fun and as much time commitment as it is, it's a wonderful experience, and I think that you eloquently have communicated exactly how it should be. It's a team effort. You've got other principal officers, and I think you're set up for success, and now it's just a matter of putting a little momentum behind it, and no doubt you'll do it.
I'm looking forward to being in San Antonio with everyone for sure.
Polyester and Texas humidity. Looking forward to Class A's.
We are all training right now. Everyone go outside in their Class A today, and you'll be ready for San Antonio.
Well, Donna, it's been awesome, and I think you hit the nail on the head. I was going to explore, like, what do we do with taking 2 years to buy fire trucks and 1 year to get turnout gear, but we'll save that for another one, because I think you just hit it out of the park. That for associations like the IAFC to work, we've got to engage members. We've got to get them on committees. We've got to advocate to bring more people in and keep sharing. But I think so much of it is we got to hear from the members and hear what they need. And it's not just about the fire service. I talked to 3 fire chiefs today about everybody's favorite batteries, but it's reach out through connections. They talked to this guy, said, and I think that's what we're all about, is how do we help each other? Because this is just one big thing, right? Tom's fire trucks he has 6 wheels on his engines, and I have 6 wheels, and we still face a lot of the same challenges. So
the other thing I hope we can do, if I can interject, because I think it's important, is we need to work with our sister agencies. Like, we're not the only ones doing fire and EMS stuff. I think we need to collaborate with all the agencies that are doing this type of work, we're speaking on the Hill and making sure that we're not all reinventing the wheel and that we're working together I think that's going to strengthen our industry, is if we can. IFC is just one cog of the wheel. And I definitely want to see us do more collaboration with projects even.
I don't know if you guys have seen this, but like some of my role as fire chief, we've had a lot of leadership changes in the communities we work with, management and directors and everything else. And one of the things, I heard it best this morning, is I think the whole world needs to stop and take a deep breath and just relax for a hot second. But I have found that a lot of the skills I've learned and what we've been doing is trying to get the right people in the room to make good quality decisions and hear from each other. And I find that some of that technique that you just described, working with other agencies, I'm finding more and more locally I'm having to do that and initiate. It's not just me being invited, it's us seeing that there's an issue that we might be a small microcosm or a part of. And it's how do we engage other departments, county assets, neighbors, things that have nothing to do with fire trucks to help solve our problems collectively and not recreate. I don't know if you guys are seeing any of that, but it's been big lately.
I think one of our biggest challenges is we only have our perspective, right? Like if we can get the perspective of people that don't know our industry like we do, but they understand people or products or services, and we can all collaborate together, I think that makes us stronger.
Doesn't make us weaker. I think you're right. Usually I always say that, working together is always much more difficult and challenging than just doing whatever you want and going out on a walk. But so is the reward that, having tough conversations and finding middle ground and understanding that, even sometimes humans miss their ability to change their mind, right? It's okay to take in additional information and change your perspective and viewpoint. I think that's what we're supposed to do. And that's what collaboration oftentimes will lead to if done correctly. So I think you're onto something, Donna.
But it's a team.
All right. So Donna, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
So email, I'll give is dblack@townofduck.com. Not difficult. That's probably the easiest way. I don't know that I want to give my cell phone out because Jenkins doesn't even have it. No, I'm kidding.
I write it everywhere I travel.
That's probably the best way to reach me. Or you could call the direct number to Duck Fire, which I'm fine to give, is 252-261-3929. Can get to my email or voicemail.
Now, little known fact. Talk to us about T-shirts at Duck Fire.
It's one of those things, you put a duck on a shirt and they will buy it. So it's been a primary fundraiser for us, especially during the volunteer years. So the way our T-shirt shop works is we have municipal funding for direct operations for the fire department. We've been selling T-shirts. We used to sell them out of the front room, and Mike's been to our building in a little made up like closet, and we'd unlock it and we'd open it up and take out a T-shirt. Someone would buy it. It's very popular now. So we actually have people that run it and we pay them to run it. And matter of fact, the guys were here today dropping off orders. They're flying off the shelves. You can go online to duckfire.org if you want a T-shirt. But we've used it to support the volunteer effort, and we'll also do it for a capital project. So we'll pick something, a new brush truck or something to be mindful that, we don't need to be sitting on $1 bazillion, but it does help us to definitely on with volunteers, physicals, duty uniforms, things like that. We do an annual dinner, things like that. But then we'll usually put some to a capital project. So
okay, that's a good takeaway. So if somebody wants to get a hold of Donna, now they have her contact information. They can go buy a T-shirt. I'm sure that carries a little weight and emphasizing their opinion. So that's a good way to close out. Donna, it was good to visit with you. Mike and I wish you the best. We know you're going to do an awesome job.
thank you.
We do have to do one of these when you're done, though, and just kind of get your perspective on what you thought and what you encountered.
The setting might be different.
I think it will be.
But thank you both. Thank you both for your support, and thank you for what you guys are doing to get out there and interview folks and put things out there. Mike and I talk about it all the time. We need to communicate out. We need to be doing stuff like this. So thanks for the opportunity.
Anytime.
See you guys.